Good morning, everybody. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Bill is back. Jerry is still gone. He had to work again today. I don't know if Shannon's going to be here, but Steve and Dennis and Bill are here, and I'm here. I'm kind of here. I've had strep throat all week, so if I blank out in the middle of this, you'll know why. And you can probably hear it in my voice. Anyway, I'm feeling much better now. I've got some antibiotics in me, but
Well,
that might mean Steve will actually have something to say this week.
he'll have some time to talk. Yeah, he can tell us about what happened to his train when he dumped it over.
What?
Another one?
Yeah, he did. He did bad
Did it
faux
hit the ground again?
No. When I ran it the last time in Medford, remember I had told you I had a couple of derailments, and the first one was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And that front truck apparently caught either a guardrail or a frog or something. And I was cleaning it up a couple of days ago, wiping wheels, and the front right wheel on the tender truck, I was looking at it, and it broke the whole rim of the wheel because it's a cast wheel. It's not turned.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like, oh shit. So hopefully I don't have a hairline crack in that wheel. But yeah, I did a pretty good job on that wheel. So I was like, oh man.
Now, if it is ruined, does that mean both wheels, or do you have the capacity to replace a wheel?
You could replace one wheel. It's quite a process because you gotta disassemble the truck and get that wheel axle set out and find a machinist with a press, and they can press that wheel off and put another one on.
Okay, so it is a press fit then?
Yeah. So I mean, theoretically, it's easy to do, but you got to find somebody that's got a shop that can do it. So I mean, it's not a disaster, but it was like I was like, yeah. It's like, yeah.
Well, Steve, I'm gonna have to go through the roster here.
Oh, sure.
Our favorite pilots over in Spain were both just over there. So
Wow.
we'll hear some more about that here in a minute.
Yeah.
But it's funny to see John's over in Spain now. Anyway, go ahead, Steve.
Man, we got a bunch of people. There's some weird guy in here, a jerk, I guess. It's D. Carell. He must be some kind of a stalker. Now,
Only in prisons.
Yeah.
Only stalks in prisons.
Yeah, well,
He's a prison stalker.
Dennis's nickname is Pucker Inspector. Anyway.
God.
Oh my God.
Well, I hope I don't miss somebody. A lot of people in chat that's just flying by. Good morning. We got Jack. Good morning. Joe Rader. John 2618. How are you doing? Closet Branch. Michael McCarville. Good morning. Skulka River Valley John. Good morning. Rob T-Man. Roy Hardwick. Lee. We got Tammy from Mother and Son Railroad. Let's see. We got Allison. Good morning. We got Ray Ron. Good morning. We got Almar. Good morning. BB&Q in Wyoming. Good morning. How are you? Oh, let's see who else we got here. Who did I miss?
Did you get Joe Rader?
I think I got Joe.
Okay, Joe's, yeah.
You
You probably got everybody then. Jack's here.
Anyway, good morning. I'm sorry about last
Closet Branch? The Closet Branch?
Yeah, what's your first name, Closet Branch? So we don't have to say Closet Branch. And I apologize for last week. My internet just went whoop and it was gone. I couldn't get it reset or anything back on the show. But it was a good show. I watched the replay. And so it was kind of fun watching it, not knowing what happened. So it was like
Yeah. Well,
anyway,
I'll rewatch the show, and half the time I forget stuff that we even talked about until I rewatch it, because we go through so many different things a lot of times in one show. That's why every time I look up and we got 5 minutes left, and I think we got a half hour left, and we got 5 minutes left, it's like, wow, but we talk about quite a bit of stuff usually. But Anyway, welcome everybody. Good to see you. And Bill's been over in Spain for work, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, it was work. Went over, had meetings with a group that I work with, and then toured a number of different facilities that the company owns over there. But it was nice. I got to ride a number of different trains in Spain. So we were based in Barcelona, ended up going to a city near the Spain, France border, and then also into Madrid. And the railroads are, everything that I saw was electrified in Spain. And I'll be honest, the rail service there and the cleanliness, both of the trains and of the grounds around the railroad and the cities in general, just unbelievably clean. Nothing like what you see here, sad to say. But, you know, the train that I took that went from Barcelona to Madrid, as the crow flies, Madrid's like over 300 miles from Barcelona. And the train trip took just less than 3 hours. So it was electrified high-speed bullet train. At its maximum, we were going over 300 kilometers per hour, which equates to over 187 miles per hour. On average, about 150 miles per hour on this passenger train, and you couldn't feel it. There was no sway. There was no sense of motion except when you're accelerating. And going over switch points, you would hear a little click, and that was it. There was no ka-chunk, ka-chunk like you hear here. And they had dedicated trackage to the high-speed trains, and then sort of like, you know, highway system here, you've got your dedicated main roads, and then you've got the side roads, which is for local traffic. Same thing there for their freight service. It was really nice. And, you know, the service on the train, we got to go to from Barcelona to Madrid and back, first class, cost about 350 US for the round trip. But they would come to your seat as you're sitting and bring you food and beverages all throughout the trip. You know, if there was somebody sitting next to you that did not have first class, well, they wouldn't get the same service. You know, they'd be in a good, comfortable train, but it was really nice. I really enjoyed it. I got a lot of video clips from out the window. So I'll be having a video posted to my channel probably later this week that just, you know, shows what I could see from the train as everything was just blasting by. But it was fun. It was really a nice experience there. And then I got to go to
how long did it take to, you know, like say from a full stop to get to top speed? Just out of curiosity.
Maybe a minute and a half. It really, you know, you'd pull out of a station and it would be slow. And then as soon as you cleared whatever the trackage rights were, you could feel the train accelerating, and you could watch on a little screen that they had at the end of the car. And the numbers were just like, you know, going up until you would reach maximum speed. So it didn't take very long at all to accelerate up to, you know, the speed that you were allowed on that trackage. Because we were going over bridges, going through tunnels, going through mountains, going through plains, you know, olive orchards, apple orchards, all kinds of topography from, you know, sort of Midwest green, like up in Iowa, Wisconsin, to South Dakota reds and browns in the matter of just crossing a mountain range. You know, it would change that rapidly. It was really fun.
Yeah. Well, yeah, going that fast, it changes your perspective on how fast the terrain changes or where it changes. Because it's the same way here. You get over on the Sierra, you get on the west side and it's lush and green. You get on the west side and it starts getting brown in the desert. You know, because the mountains squeeze all the moisture out of the clouds, and they go over, and there's nothing left on the other side, so it's all brown. But yeah, when you're going really fast like that, it's a much starker contrast because it's not a gradual change; it's real fast. But
yeah, you'd be able to watch, like on these trains, you'd be able to watch the mountain ranges coming up in front of you. You know, you could see the track, and you could watch as the train was kind of curving into the mountain, and you would be in a tunnel maybe 30, 40 seconds, and then you're out. Then you're already on the other side of that range, and you know you're going into something different. It was a pretty cool experience.
Cool.
Also, while I was there, I got to go to a hobby shop. There was a hobby shop that was about 10 minutes from the hotel. So on my last day, I was able to hoof it down there before I had to go to the airport. And a really nice hobby shop, lots of good HO scale. They had a little bit of N, a little bit of O. A guy in there had bought collections, had his own collection in there, some new stuff. So I ended up getting a couple of pieces just for display up in my office. But one was like an electrified locomotive, trying to think what it was, like a BR 111, I think is what it was classified as. A nice display model. It works. It was an analog. And then I was looking, and there was a stack of Markland European style freight cars of different types, like a 3-pack that you could get. And I was looking through it, and I found a maintenance of way set, and it was listed at like 65 euros. So, roughly about 70 US dollars. And it was pretty cute. A little work BoxCar, a little crane tender, and then a little crane. I didn't think anything of it because I was just going to buy it and then put it on display. And I'm talking to the guy that owns the shop. He knew English, which is good because I don't know Spanish except for a few words. And he's going, "Oh, this doesn't work." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." It was a crane. I'm used to the cranes here. You manually do things. And he's like, I tried programming the crane. I tried everything and I could not get it to work. And I'm thinking, ooh, DCC. And then he's going that he's doing this different things and he's not able to get it to function. And I'm looking at it. It's like, yeah, I can see the motors inside the cab of the crane. And he goes, "Since it doesn't work, I'll give it to you for 45 euros. Like, sold, I'll take it. And, I get it home and I look at it. And yeah, there's motors, it's DCC. It's one that if you've got the Markland controller, it's supposed to be able to move the crane right, left, move the boom up and down and actually lift things with it. So one of these days I'll have to figure out how to play with it a little bit and see if I can get it to function. Right now it's on display up in the office, but I thought that was pretty cool. So I spent about 140, 145 US for some different stuff. One other thing that I got there, and I think the box I've got somewhere else, but you can see on eBay these little bags of bricks. You can buy like 200 of them for 11, 12 bucks plus shipping and different scales. So I found where those people are getting them, and I'll show some stuff in a video later. But this is like 2,000 of those little scale bricks, and it cost me $9 US. And he had a whole different variety of them, all different colors: bricks, flagstones, cobblestones, like pieces of slate that you can do modeling.
Oh, wow.
And they were all like 8 euros a piece. And I've got the company name for where he was getting them for sale. And I'm going to try to find some for here because they're just crazy expensive on eBay. They're wonderful for doing different things on the layout and just for having random bricks. But it's like that right there was probably the key thing that I took away from the whole trip of something that was really cool. I know where they're getting them now, and I'm going to see if I can find them stateside.
Huh. Yeah. Well, does the company that make those not have a website?
They do. It's a European company. And trying to remember, I think I've got the box hidden behind me here. In fact, let me see if I can find it real quick.
Because if you could order it straight from them, it might be the best way to do it.
Yeah, that's what I thought is.
Even paying shipping, at least you wouldn't have the markup that the U.S. hobby shops are going to put on it.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see this. This is the company. And it's...
hang on. Let me get you bigger.
Make him big, Claude.
There we go.
If I can get it. So this is the company, and they make, and it's like down here, I think is the name of them.
Yeah,
and this is how they come. Yeah, so it's, what is it?
Very good.
Juweli, Juweela, registered trademark, and it's from Germany. So, they make all kinds of different stuff. So that's the company to look for to see if you can get them, even if it's a little bit of shipping. This is like 2,000 plus bricks for, $9 US, or you go on eBay, you get 200 of them for like 13 bucks plus shipping. This is the way to go if you can find it.
Yeah. If you want something like that, And I can see where that can really, like your pump house that you got guys building.
Yep.
If you want to do a scene like that, I know where they came up with that stuff was a lot of it was the World War II dioramas that guys were doing with the blown up buildings and stuff. Because that's every movie you see in World War II, you got the bricks in the street and everything. So I know that's where they came up with having that. But
yep, you get that, and even if you get like a bag, you could scatter them around in different areas, like where you got construction equipment, a pile of bricks behind a building. Yeah, and they come in like all different colors, whites, different shades of reds, dark reds, browns. I was really impressed to see a display at his shop that had so many different colors and types where, here you get like a little baggie of them and that's about it.
Yeah. Well, they're buying that one for €10 and then splitting it up into 5 bags worth.
Yeah. And that's
making pretty good profit.
That's exactly what I think some people are doing is they're doing that. And, it's a good side hustle for sure. But if you go right to the source, I think, and if you want them, that's the best way.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people wouldn't bother to try and find the manufacturer if they're in Europe. But yeah, that would be the way to do it. Yeah. If the shipping from over there is not too much, because they usually have a VAT and all that kind of stuff too that goes on top of that. So you have to be careful on what the final cost is going to be, but it's probably still going to be lower than if you buy it here.
Probably is. And if you would buy potentially in bulk, buy 5 or 6 or 7, then you get a lower shipping overall. There'd be economics to it depending upon what you want to do. And if your cup of tea is building your own buildings out of brick, that's the way to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me. Definitely have to look into it because I got several brick buildings that, of course, what I've got right now is the Monster Model Works brick sheeting made of wood, a laser cut wood brick sheeting. That's what my plan is, but I'll definitely look into that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying any wood brick sheet.
I can just picture trying to build an N-scale building with tweezers and little tiny bricks and magnifying glass.
Well, there again, it really wouldn't be for building the whole building. It'd be for doing a demolished building or a partially built structure of some kind.
Yeah. Although I'm sure somewhere out there, somebody has done exactly what you said, Steve. Brick for brick, built a brick building out of those. You just know somebody's done that.
Yeah. How would you mortar that?
I have no idea. Like what I
did. Very thin fiber paste or
toothpaste would work.
Putty of some kind. Yeah, spackling paste, something.
Toothpaste would work because
toothpaste might work. I don't know how. Toothpaste, I would think, would shrink though over time.
Well, yeah, pretty much anything. Mortar shrinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff shrinks when it dries.
It would look natural.
Yeah.
You'd have crack. You'd have some falling out eventually. It would look real.
Yeah. Yeah, if you could, especially if you put a little dye in your toothpaste, and then you could make it whatever color, like gray or something like that. So. But yeah, I could see toothpaste working real well for something like that. I'm not going to try it, but somebody I'm sure will try it or has tried it. Excuse me.
Oh, goodness.
Heath has had several specified questions for me about bench work. I don't know if that's a topic that we could just kind of roll into if we wanted to.
What's he asking? I'm missing.
Unless Bill's got something really cool to show, is it?
Nope. The only thing I've got done is I have officially finished the layout. And of course, I've still got lots of details, but all of my big stuff is done. I got my tunnel liner in. I got my fascia painted. So in fact, before the show, I'm starting to set the layup up so that I can do some running here this afternoon.
Gotcha. Yeah. So Heath is getting ready to start a large project, I guess, in his space. And I was on Discord and noticed that he was talking about that. And I've got this book, which I think is the definitive, of course it's backwards, I guess. It's the definitive book on model railroad bench work, in my opinion. And he was talking about dimensional sizes and things like that. And then this book specifically has some tables that are really useful. And it talks about, where you put your legs and how much weight you can put in between your legs, where you're spanning from one leg to the other. And depending on the lumber that you use, where your legs should be and how much your span can be without getting any sag and so on and so forth. And I that's what I use for all of my bench work, and just try to make, and I think I can't remember, there's a difference between your shear strength with dimensional lumber and plywood. I believe plywood is going to be stronger this way, than your dimensional lumber is. But then your plywood is going to be weaker this way than your dimensional lumber. I use plywood for everything for basically one reason, and that's because when you rip it, you can make any size you want out of a sheet of plywood. Generally speaking, it's going to be stronger because you're going to be using it this way in your bench work more than this way. This is just going to be what you're going to sheet the top with, which I still use, plywood for that too, but you don't need the strength that way generally. So,
Well, it's like, anymore,
a good way to go.
Anymore, instead of using like 2x12s for second story construction, like on this house, we got a second story. And so instead of using the solid wood, like a 2x12, even doubled up 2x12s, they use laminated beams, and they actually make, it's all out of plywood, laminated together, and then they laminate solid wood top and bottom like an I-beam, and incredibly strong. Much more stronger. Yeah, much more carry strength, because we've got some big rooms here and it's all got stuff above it. So, if they didn't do it that way, we'd have sagged ceiling in here. But it's kind of neat to see where the construction, I've been around construction all my life, so I remember seeing all the old stuff. And when they started coming out with the laminate stuff, I thought, what are they doing? And then I realized, well, it's for the strength. Plus, it's easier. They don't have to have the same kind of wood, grade of wood. They can use a cheaper grade of wood, make the plywood out of that, and laminate it together. And it's stronger than anything else that you're going to get, than the better lumber that you would get that would be solid lumber. So,
well, the process of logging the tree too, because we see lumber trucks coming through here, logging trucks with small trees that they can turn over faster. They grow quicker, and they turn it into dimensional lumber. The man-made lumber.
Yeah, because the bigger trees they cut a lot of dimensional lumber out of, but they wouldn't necessarily put it in to make plywood out of, because they're so wide, diameter wise. But the smaller trees would be a lot easier to put on something like that and turn it. It's basically, from what I understand, it's basically like a giant lathe, and they're just shearing off the thickness of the plies that they want, and then it goes in through the machine and layers them up and stuff. But yeah, they can do a lot more with the less expensive trees and the less grade trees that they grow now, because all those fast hybrid trees that they're replanting are not what was there originally.
Right.
The original stuff is Doug fir and all that. Well, you can't hardly get Doug fir or yellow pine or any of that kind of stuff anymore anyway. It's all hybrid stuff that's got all the knots in it.
Right.
So all the stuff you see more at the lumberyard is all got knots in it.
Heath asked if I used cleats, and I think the answer is yes, but maybe not in the same way that a lot of people would use cleats. You can see this, but all of my staging yard are up on risers, Of course, if anybody's watched, there's a whole playlist of bench work that I did, but that's all up there so that all of my wiring can run without having to cut holes in anything, and I could do all my wiring with the plywood upside down on a workbench out in the shed. That's why I did. So I kind of consider that a cleat. There are other places where I used cleats in a more traditional aspect. And I think Jack asked what size my plywood is. The staging yard is 3/4 inch. Everything else I've done in 1/2 inch because I kind of figured out that 3/4 is really heavy. And the way I'm doing things, I need to be able to move stuff back and forth. And if you support it in all the right places, 1/2 inch is plenty good.
Yeah.
This right here, I can stand and walk on that. It's a lot beefier than probably that it needed to be.
Yeah, 3/4 ply is in my opinion is overkill for almost any model railroad. There's just not a need for that thick of wood. The trains just don't weigh that much, and the scenery doesn't. There's a lot more foam being used now, a lot less plaster. But even on my mountain, it's not even more than 1/2 inch ply any place that I put that, which was at the base of the loops, and then everything comes up off of that. So that whole mountain is sitting on a piece of 1/2 inch ply with, of course, support under that, but it's not as heavy as they tried to make it sound in the 50s and 60s when you were reading Model Railroader and talking about doing L-girder bench work. They made it sound like, oh God, you got to have a whole lumberyard full of stuff to run trains, and you really don't. But if you do it right, like they had, that's the nice thing about the L-girder framework is it is very easy to change things as you go when you need to.
Yeah, Heath asks for dimensional lumber. They are not letting them dry enough before cutting, so they will twist like a drill, and that's true. If you're going to use long lengths of dimensional lumber, even the good stuff, my suggestion would be only buy enough that you're going to use the weekend that you buy it. Get it put together as quick as you can with all the supports everywhere you need, because if you let that sit on your shelf for a month or whatever without using it, it's gonna be completely different a month later after you buy it. I found out that the hard way because all of my ceiling is supported with 1x4s in certain places. Not the ceiling, but the foam insulation above the thick insulation that's in between the rafters and the ceiling. I've got 2 layers of insulation in the roof. I used 1x4s to hold up the foam insulation directly to the roofing material. And I bought all of that at once and it took me a long time to do it because I was working by myself. And those things look like, some of them I just absolutely couldn't use because they twisted and bowed so bad. It was like, holy cow. So if you're going to use dimensional lumber, get the good stuff and try and use it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, they always have a bin with, especially in 1x stuff. It's usually 1x3 or 1x2.5, and they call it utility grade. And that stuff's going to curl as soon as you pull it off the shelf, for the most part. Or it'll have so many knots in it, it won't have any strength, any span strength to it at all. So you have to use it for just making bracing and stuff like that. That's all I ever use it for.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark's in
3/8 inch ply
days.
Say it again, Steve.
Well, Mark Pruitt, he says even the good stuff pretzels up these days.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, it's because it's all the hybrid wood.
Well, they're also curing it before. I mean, they're selling this stuff so fast that it doesn't have to cure anymore.
It's green and wet. The second they take the banding,
after they cut it, they don't stipple anything anymore like they used to. It all comes to the store damp.
Yeah.
And they bind it up in one big, in the big blocks that they do. and they're fine while they're in there. But as soon as they come out of that, that's when they start drying out. And of course, wood fiber, it dries it different. Each layer dries a little bit differently, and that's what makes it curl. The pressure treated stuff is what's really bad. Heath had something else, something about your comment about wiring makes me think I should raise the bench work at least half inch above the framework instead of making wiring holes.
I wish I could post a comment in here, but I can't. That's one thing I don't like about this. I'm going to post this in Discord, Heath, just for your viewing pleasure. See if I can do this. Go to that link that I just sent you in Discord, Heath, and take a look at his entire layout. In my opinion, I haven't seen anybody build a layout better than the way this guy has built his layout. To me, it's just the gold standard for how to build a layout, in my opinion. And his name is, oh gosh, I'll think of it in a minute, but it's the LK&O Railroad. He's got a few videos on, but he's not a YouTuber at all. But he's got a few videos that you can kind of see some of the things. He just got finished building a massive helix that I don't know how many stories it is, but it's block detected every way. It's just his attention to detail of how he's done things. He has been the #1 inspiration for how I've moved forward with my railroad. His panels are just like professional grade, wow kind of thing. Everybody should go check out his website if you get a chance.
So that's what you sent,
Yeah.
Heath? Okay, so Heath put it. I was going to say, send me the link and I'll put it up there, but there's your link to it. So if you guys want to see that, you can.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
His first name's Alan. I remember his first name's Alan, but I don't know that he gives his last name anywhere in his website, which, I don't blame him. But everything that he's done has just been amazing so far on that layout.
I'll have to take a look at that. As far as drilling holes through your cross members, instead of going underneath, it would depend. If you've got legs, if you're putting legs under stuff, to me, it's just as easy to strap them to the bottom of your supports. That's what I did, as opposed to trying to drill holes and everything and feed everything through a hole. You can do it that way, obviously.
That's the way I did mine.
You have to remember, Dennis is a little anal about that kind of stuff. And Gail will back me up on this. So but there's nothing wrong with that. It's a very neat way of doing it. But if you ever have to pull anything out, you got to pull it back through the holes and all that stuff. Whereas if you've got it strapped up, you can just take the strap loose, pull the wire out, strap back on and go. It's just two different ways of doing it. But if you're setting it down, if your supports are sitting on a flat thing like a table or something, you're not going to be able to go underneath anyway. So you will have to drill holes through it or cut notches in it or something. But I'd do that before assembly. So I think somebody said that on here too, is to drill the holes first.
Yeah, I use the hole method. So once I get the casework done, I'll go in and I'll put holes about every 6 inches, all different directions for my cross pieces. And generally I'll be able to thread my wire so that I don't have anything that, hangs down. It's at least neat and I can get to it. And if you do your wire,
I can't do hanging down of wires.
Say again?
I said, I really don't like hanging down wires. It's
That doesn't.
Don't go there. I'm gonna have to make him a t-shirt.
If you saw the wiring underneath my in-scale layout, it was just, that whole thing was I want to get through all the things I don't really want to do so that I can see my train get from point A to point B. Really rushed every aspect. And after getting everything completed, now I've got trains running, and then all the problems started happening, and then you're like, well, now I'm back underneath here doing something that I should have done right the first time. And so that sealed it for me when I started this project, that I'm trying to do things very slow, very methodic, and where I don't have to go back and undo things, like create more gaps underneath the PCB ties that are apparently connected to each other through metal track nails. Don't worry, Dennis, many a day lately I've been gotcha.
I think that goes for all of us, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that goes for all of us. Oh, and Hi says that he will not talk about his wiring. I won't talk about mine either, because mine's a mess. Mine probably looks like your N-scale did.
Oh, mine's worse.
Yeah, that's one of the things I hate the most about the hobby, is the wiring part of it, which is bad, because if you want to go in and add something, like I've got some sound modules I want to put in certain places. I want to use some smoke generators, so I still got to get under there and do some of that stuff. And then you have to figure, okay, now where can I hook this up at? And I still have a lot of LED lights to put on too, a lot of those. But this second level I'm doing structures for now, that's going to get wired more like what you did, just so I don't have to mess with it once it's up here. Because I don't want anything, or can't have anything hanging down there, because it'll show.
Right. And in my opinion, once you do that, once you flip your layout over and start working on the wiring and all that stuff from a standing position, the next time you have to go underneath a layout with your arms up in the air, and you're like, I never want to do this again when I can do it the other way.
Yeah.
The only downside to it is if you've got a large chunk that you're working with, which I think I have now, except for maybe where my town is going to be over here, but most of that is going to be scenery, not track work. I think everything else I've got will be very easily handled, where before, like the big chunk of plywood for frying pan, and then my reverse loop here, I had to have help with that, and I had to have the wife help me with this over here. But if you got anybody that can help carry a piece of plywood from point A to point B, in my opinion, it's worth doing it that way.
Yeah.
I
haven't decided if I'm going to use plywood on that section either. I may go with foam, like a 2-inch foam or something. I haven't really decided yet what I'm going to do with that, but make it out of it.
I agree with Joe Rader. He said his looks like drunk spiders ran the wires.
Yeah, that would be mine.
That's my HO scale too.
Yeah, you can always look at somebody's layout, right? If you look at all aspects of the layout, you can always tell what their least favorite thing to do was. It never fails. You can always tell.
Well, you can also tell if they're DCC or analog. DC or analog, it's a maze of wiring where the DCC eliminates so much of that.
Oh yeah. It really is crazy how much less wiring you have to do. What do we got? What else we got in here? Oh, Roy's telling Heath what to do with his L-girder stuff. And that is true. That's the basic concept. And it's a really good concept, because you can, if you need to move one of your cleats or your, I don't know, you call them risers or whatever, but your horizontal pieces.
Cross joists.
You just pull the screw out of the bottom and move it over and put it back in a little further over. And to move it for wiring or turnout motors or whatever you've got in there that you've got to move it for.
Yeah. And
that's the main benefit of it.
Yeah, and scenery as well. It makes it easier to have below grade scenery, ditch gullies, little cuts, just a whole lot easier than, flat plywood
or even doing foam.
Yeah.
Because if you're using like a 2-inch foam and that's all, which is plenty strong enough to hold your trains for the most part. I don't know how much plaster it would take without bowing, but if you don't have a lot on top of it, the problem with going below that, then it makes it a little tough unless you're just going to dig, halfway through or something with a little ditch. But if you want a ravine or something, you still got to do the same thing you would do with plywood.
Yeah. Build a little bit of a casework underneath.
Yeah.
On the NO scale that I've got back here, I don't have much relief one way or another on it. So I did the 2-inch foam. Then I did like an 1/8-inch sheet of like cabinet backing, plywood, whatever you want to call it, underneath. So that's sitting on my 1x supports on the framework. Real light and easy, but it does provide support so you could cut all the way through the foam, at least 2 inches down to that little wooden base. It's effective, but you're right. It does limit. You don't get the deep gullies or stream beds that you want using that method without adding other methods to it.
Yeah, without doing the same thing you would do with plywood to get there, because you got to have something to support it all.
Yeah.
But I thought about doing that too, maybe a masonite or something like that underneath, so that I've got something to put turnout motors against and things like that. But if I did that, I don't know that I would go with 2-inch. I would probably go with 1-inch foam and get the same kind of thing out of using the foam. You still get the lightweight. You just have 1 inch less depth to dig into. But up there where I'll be doing that, there won't be a lot of depth needed. It's going to be fairly flat up there. So I'll probably do it with 1-inch foam and probably a masonite or something glued to it, glue it together and do it that way. Joyce, yes. Dennis, thank you. That's what I was trying to think of too when we were talking about that. It's your horizontal joist.
Yeah.
Okay, what else are we going to talk about? Have we got any more questions?
No, we're quiet this morning.
Plywood cookie cutter bench work. That I've done that on mine in several places.
I think that's, if I were Heath, I would look into that because from what I've seen of his track plan, it looks like that might be a viable way of accomplishing what he's wanting to accomplish. I don't know if that's what he's thinking about or not yet, but.
Well, the nice thing about the cookie cutter system is you can do your grades, incorporate your grades right in it. So you just make the slits so that any place you want the grade to come up. I did that on my mining district. That's what I used on there. And you just prop it up where you need it to be and go from there.
That's my plan for the streets in Silver Gulch. That's why I'm laying that 1/8-inch masonite on, so I can go in everywhere where the street is, cut it like a cookie, and then slide whatever I need underneath it to gain the elevation for the roads. That's the
and then you get a smooth transition that way. You don't have dissimilar things like using a lot of people use the Woodland Scenic foam risers to gain, and I've not used those, so I'm not real familiar with them. But you still got two dissimilar things there. Whereas if you're cookie cutting the plywood, it's all one piece that curves up,
right,
and it makes it much smoother.
And then if the town itself, or not the town, but that block, each building on its own riser, will be independent of that rise on the town, on the road, and hopefully that will work the way I want it to. I'm still working on it. I haven't done anything. I didn't do anything last weekend, which we talked about that already.
Now, Gail says that you're anal about a lot of stuff. Is your layout?
Now she shows up 15 minutes left just to make fun of me.
Yeah.
Thanks, babe.
that your job description or your
That's not my job description. No.
I know.
My job description is agent. It has nothing to do with anything anal.
Yeah, right.
Okay, he says the staging will be flat baseboard, but the inclines will be cookie cutter. That's a good way to go.
That's what I saw because I've been kind of keeping tabs on what he's got going on there, and that was the first thing I thought is this is a perfect cookie cutter type layout.
Well, because the biggest problem with any time you change from flat to a rise or vice versa is if you get it too steep at that transition, then you're going to derail and stuff. Your train's going to be longer, especially longer stuff is going to be coming off the track real easy right there. So the smoother you can make that transition, the better. And it goes for any scale. I'm not putting that up there, Roy. But yeah, you have to watch your transitions on that. I've even seen people have problems with steam locos coming down and hitting the pilot on the rails because the incline was too steep, and so when it's coming down, the front of the pilot would always hit the ties in between the tracks. So you really got to be sure that you do smooth transitions on your grades, and doing a cookie cutter really helps do that. He's only going to use 1 to 1.5 inch grades. Yeah,
is that now, Heath? Is that grades or is that degree? What's the degree that you're going to rise? Just out of curiosity.
Well, 1 to 1.5 degree rise is not very much.
No,
it's not real fast, so that shouldn't be
certainly better than like 3 or 4.
Yeah, because see, I had that problem with mine trying to get, the first place mine rises coming out of the yard and stuff, and starting up the mountain. That's a pretty good slope right there. Yeah. Dennis has seen it in person. Roy's seen it in person. They can tell you it's a pretty steep
on.
Say again?
Do you remember when we were working on the loop around to right here above my workbench, and we were using the grade finder that we ended up discovering that we were dealing with degrees instead of grades? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Heath went through that entire experience live on his show last Tuesday.
Well, because your brain says, okay, this is a percentage. No, it's not a percentage, it's degrees. Yeah. But the trick there is to set up a rigid, sort of like a 4-foot level. Raise it at what the percentage needs to be. So if you're a 4%, you're going to raise it 4 inches per scale foot, basically. And so then you set that little digital scale or level on it, and it'll tell you the degrees. So then you know that, and you write that down, and then you know what all those degrees will give you, and
which is what we did. But Heath wasn't aware that he wasn't looking at degrees at the time, just like we were. So I'm not picking at Heath. It's an easy mistake to make.
Yeah.
I was upset that I didn't catch it sooner, but he had. So the far end that he had hinged for his test track was up in the air. So what he was using to level the track was not, it was skewed to my eye because he wasn't on the workbench. He was like another 2 inches or 3 inches above his workbench that his test platform was. So I couldn't recognize it as not being the correct degree. I thought the whole time it looked a little steeper than what he was reading on the thing, but it just not until the very end, all of a sudden went, I know exactly what's going on here. By then it was too late to do anything about it.
Yeah. Recovering from the live stream. Yeah. You can get off on a rabbit hole and not even realize that's where you're at. And you're going, why isn't this working out? You know? And I did the same thing, had that little digital thing. And I first started using it going, okay, I want 4 degrees. And I'm looking at 4 degrees going, that's pretty steep. You know, a lot steeper than I was thinking it was going to be.
Yeah, like,
but because I wasn't doing 4
times
degrees.
more or something like that.
Yeah.
Because
I wasn't doing it 4%.
there's 360 degrees and there's only 100 percentage marks.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a big change, a big difference in it. But
Yep.
that little tool does work really well, but you have to set a rigid grade calculator up, set it at what you know the percentage of the grade is going to be by measuring it out. Set it at that, set your digital scale up there and write that down. And then, of course, the other thing you have to watch, you know, with all those, you have to watch the 0 point on them. So every time you go to put it on your layout to measure something, make sure you've got it on what you know is flat and level and zero it out first, then go to your layout with it. Because they will change without you knowing that they're changing. And your 0 point, if your 0 point changes, then it changes all your calculation on it.
Jack wants to know if anyone's ever done a video on how to do a grade percentage elevation for your layout. Heath did one last Tuesday, but I wouldn't suggest watching it. There's a site called Railroad Boy Grade Calculator. It's a grade calculator that does both in scale and HO. It will also figure in, if you know the radius of your curve, say you've got an 18-inch radius curve on a percentage grade, it will add that into it. So you'll know that if you got a 2% grade and an 18-inch radius, it just turned it into a 3% grade by adding the radius. That's what I used for all of my stuff. I feel like it came out perfectly, what I wanted. And what I did is I created a stick that had marks on the stick, and everywhere that I wanted my spline to be, I literally clamped to the stick at the elevation that it needed to be, put the risers underneath it, and then continued on. And the stick that I made was greater than the top elevation that my track would ever be, so that I could use it from the beginning here at 32 inches, I think is where I'm at here, to where I'm 51 or 52 at Silver Gulch. I don't remember the actual numbers, but that's what I did, as I put all of those marks, you know, so that every 8 foot I had so much rise, I could clamp my spline to that mark on the stick and then add my risers underneath it. It was pretty simple.
Yeah. Well, doing with the spline like you did for your road bed for the long runs is really good too, because it stays pretty rigid.
And what little bit it does bend is going to be natural and pleasing to the eye, just like it would be in real life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
there's not much of a bow in it at all.
It gives you good scenery availability there too. But yeah, that website that you're talking about, I use that too. Probably not as well as you did, but I used it for my helix inside the mountain and that sort of thing. The rest of the layout doesn't really need that, but for the helix, I used it, and it came in handy for sure. Because what you don't realize is if you put a curve on a rise, it adds to the rise. You know, most guys don't think about that, but it will. And the steeper the curve, the more it adds to the rise. So you can end up thinking you're putting in a 3.5 or a 4 degree rise, or percent rise, and end up having a 6 or 7% in reality. And what that affects, of course, is your pulling power up the hill.
Yep.
Let's see, where are we at time-wise? Well, we got about 5-6 minutes left. Gail says she's been here the whole time.
Bernard wants to know if I made a story poll, if that's what it's called.
Yeah, that's what you did. You made a story poll.
That's what it's called, a story poll.
And Mark says the formula is CG equals G plus 32R. Okay, too much math for me. I like the
What is CG?
I like the charts. Give me a chart that says if it's this, then this is what it's going to be over here. I can work with that. I'm not in school anymore, so yeah, story pole. Yeah, I've seen them use that in the real world for doing stuff like that.
Yeah,
What's the
basically
website?
version of a surveyor's tool, where you've got stick on the far end, the old time way of doing it before we've got satellites and all of this GPS stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's what amazes me with all of the stuff in the mountains when they were laying track for the narrow gauge or even the standard gauge stuff that they did was calculating, okay, I'm here. Now, when I get down there, it's going to be this much higher or whatever, and figuring out how to get there with the road bed that wasn't going to be too strenuous for the trains going over it. And like the Cumberson Toltec, that whole gorge is like that. And they did that with wooden skids and mules, and it blows my mind that they were able to do that. And it still works. It's still the same original road bed and it still works. But anyway, and Gail says she can make fun of you a whole lot more. And I have no doubt that she can.
I can make fun of her too.
Uh-oh. He says still needs to add his easements both in the radius and in the elevation. I'm not looking forward to it.
Another advantage of spline is that the easements create themselves with spline. Yeah,
that's true. And I didn't worry too much about that stuff. Mainly because you can run model trains without it. They look a lot better. So if you've got a big layout like Dennis has, and you're going to run a long passenger train, say, or something with long cars, if you've got the easement, it looks a whole lot better than if you go from a straight to a curve. Yeah. But it just depends on each layout. Some layouts, I wouldn't worry about it, trying to put an easement in it. But on your rise, you definitely need to have that. That's part of that transition I was talking about, and the cookie cutter method kind of gives you that built in. So that's why it's pretty good. Well, we got about 2 minutes left. I think we're going to go ahead and close it up. Just a reminder, guys, we won't be here next week. I'll be out of town, and we all decided to just take the week off. So we will see you back here on the 8th, and we're going to have a guest that day. So
I probably won't be here on that show because I'm going to the Train Mountain weekend. So
okay, yeah, that's right. You did tell me that you were going to be gone. But yeah, we'll have a guest that day, and so Jerry will probably be back because it's Jerry's friend or somebody. Jerry got the guest, so I'm sure Jerry will probably be back that day. But anyway, everybody have a good 4th of July. Stay safe. Have a good time. Don't scare the animals with the fireworks.
No,
that's one reason we're leaving town is to get away from the fireworks. But
yeah,
everybody have a good time. Take care. And Bill, glad you made it back. Dennis, I don't know what we're going to do with you, but anyway, we'll leave that up to Gail, I guess. Oh, Steve never told us about your train. Just tell us real quick what you did to it. Did you say it already at the first of the show?
Yeah, I already said.
Okay. Well, you can go back and see the first of the show and see. Anyway.
All right.
Nobody's senile on this channel.
No, they're not senile. No, not yet.
Something, but not senile.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you guys later.
Okay.
Take care.
all.
Take care.